Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and wait just about another minute to let people into the Zoom meeting before we get started. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January meeting of the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board. We're happy that you've all been able to join us tonight. And so we'll go ahead and call roll. I'll go ahead and if you could just audibly say that you're present, that would be helpful. I only have one screen, so I'm navigating between a couple of screens here. So let's see. Okay. So Representative Morgan.
Present. Matt Morgan, Colorado Geological Survey.
Thank you. Mr. Benitez. Not present. Dr. Ishiwata.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Wei.
Present.
Thank you. Representative Will.
Here.
Thank you. Representative Morrow. Okay, not present. Representative Exum.
Representative Exum or Senator Exum is in a committee hearing, but he is listening live and he's going to participate that way.
Okay, great. Sorry about the mistake, Senator. And then Representative Chimino.
Commissioner Chimino's here.
Okay, I think I have to update my list. And Mayor Stout.
Present, thank you.
Sure. Executive Director Red Horse.
Good evening, present.
Good evening. And then let's see, Dion Strutter for representing Department of Local Affairs.
Dion Stroder, present.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that's all. So
we have Representative.
Sorry,
Representative Wolf.
Representative Wolf. Sorry. Representative Wolf.
And Mark is here.
Okay, and Tim.
And Tom Zeiler.
Tom Zeiler. Oh, Dr. Zeiler. Hi. Welcome. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and get started then. And we'll move on to agenda item number 3, the approval of the January agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. This is Mayor Stout.
Okay, Mayor Stout, do I have a second? Dr. Wei,
Second.
I think I saw your hand. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you. It's approved. And then let's go ahead and agenda item number 4. We will review and approve the November summary of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion passes, or all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? No. Okay. So thank you for the approval of the November summary. So that brings us to agenda item number 5, board member updates or announcements. And I don't have any, but Tim, do you have any?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just take a moment here to introduce Dion Stroder with Department of Local Affairs. She's the Deputy Director over there. I think everybody remembers that Rick Garcia retired just following our last meeting. What was that, back in December? And Dion has been appointed as the representative from the Department of Local Affairs. So we appreciate her joining us and look forward to working with her. Dion, I don't know if you wanted to just kind of say a couple words and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Tim. Dion Schroeder. I am the deputy at DOLA, and I sat in for Rick a couple of times on this committee in the last couple of years. So I'm always really interested and happy to participate in that capacity. And I'm excited to step in now as a member of it. And I've been with DOLA about 3 years. And prior to that, I worked for the city and county of Denver for about 15 years. And just very excited to be doing this work with you all.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Yes.
Welcome.
Any other announcements from the board? All right, so we're moving right along here. So let's go to, I guess, our agenda item number 6, which is our USBGN updates from Ms. Runyon. Is Jenny on?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Sorry, just getting my volume here. Let's see, BGN updates. Review list 454, which is a brand new quarterly review list with the new proposals, was just released today. I'll be sending out a notice in the next couple days, letting you know. There are a couple of names from Colorado on that new list. So we've been checking in with Chair Gonzalez and Stacy and Johnny with updates on new proposals. Other than that, nothing really to report. You know me, I'll think of something throughout the meeting and pop in. So, thank you for including me again today.
Oh, thank you as always for being here, Jenny.
Thanks.
We're always happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And so then let's go ahead and move ahead with our cases. And the format we'll use is we'll get an update from Stacy, from Ms. Coleman, and then we'll call a vote on the appropriate ones. So I guess that's agenda item, the review and consideration of USBGN case number 5038 and 5153, Redskin Creek and Redskin Mountain. So Stacy, would you like to take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Gonzalez. So I'll be giving the updates here real quick for, as Chair Gonzalez mentioned, for renaming proposal for Redskin Mountain to Mount Jerome, as well as renaming proposal for Redskin Creek to Ute Creek. Since our last meeting in November, both CGNAB and Colorado Commission of Indian Affairs staff have continued to conduct regular outreach to the various tribes, including the Ute Mountain Ute and Southern Ute Indian tribes, regarding these renaming proposals. At this time, we have received formal written feedback from Chairman Hart with the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, indicating the tribe's support for both of these renaming proposals. We still have not received formal written feedback from the Southern Ute tribe, though. Let me give a quick recap on that, though, just so that everybody knows where we're at there. In September of last year, during the monthly CCIA, Colorado Commission of Indian Affairs, feedback call held for the tribes to comment on pending CGNAB proposals, Southern Ute's Cultural Preservation Director, Crystal Rizzo, verbally indicated the Southern Ute tribe's support for both of these renaming proposals, and that the tribe's legal department would be providing the formal written response to the CGNAB on this. Since September, I have reached out to Director Rizzo on a regular basis about the aforementioned letter from their legal department, or even, if they're able to provide an informal written email indicating the tribe support, that would be, helpful to us as well for the record. Director Rizzo has indicated several times to me that she would check in with their legal department to obtain a status update. However, she's been unable to provide that update. I'm not sure if she's just having trouble getting an update from her folks or what maybe, is sort of the hang up there. But at this point in time, it's unclear what the status of the formal responsive letter is from the Southern Ute tribe. And we have, respectfully and earnestly attempted to obtain that status update too. I would say besides the pending letter from the Southern Ute tribe, tribal outreach on these proposals is otherwise completed. So that's pretty much that. The tribal outreach was sort of the remaining issue in terms of outreach for these proposals. So that's the complete update that I have at this point in time for those two.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. That was a great update. Does anybody have any questions or comments, any conversation about those two names? Hearing nothing, I think we're ready to go ahead and vote. So we'll take one at a time. And so, Dr.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think you might want to ask for public comment before we complete that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment? Thanks. Okay. Doesn't sound like we have any public comment. So I'd like to, JD, Mr. Roybal, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to figure this out. I have to use the phone to get this going. So I missed quite a bit now. If you be willing to bring me up to date, where were we at? Because I heard you say something about voting.
I'm sorry?
I heard you say something about getting ready to vote. And the only thing I wanted to say is on all these things, and I mentioned this before, is the idea of, I'm trying to get my words together.
That's okay. Take your time.
Any mountain or anything like this, in regards to a person, has always been something that I think we've discussed, and it's kind of frowned upon. And as an example, right now, already there's an article about somebody that's actually going to go after Dr. Martin Luther King, because no matter who they are, there's always going to be somebody. So I would warn against naming anything about over people, because there's always going to be controversy. And I think there's enough intellect and also imagination that I think we can come up with different names than having to actually honor somebody where you're giving somebody that status. And if you look at a lot of indigenous, I should say, tribal nations, they have a policy of doing that as well. And so if I can at least just say that much as we move forward, I really warn against trying to elevate people to status of gods. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Roybal. Anyone have anything that they want to add to that or comment on? I think in this particular case, I really want to thank you for your comment. And that is something that we did talk about in the very beginning of this advisory board was, maybe shying away from individuals' names. I think in this particular case, because it has gone through tribal approval and Ms. Coleman has done due diligence in working with the tribes, that this particular case might be okay. So yeah, but I really want to thank you for your comment. And so thank you, Mr. Roybal.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too. Again, I'm having to play catch up here. I missed the last couple of meetings and I apologize. And as an example, I left a link there, and I think it's worth watching that video. And it kind of talks about Lincoln, and it's quite poignant, I believe it is. So I hope you don't mind me sharing that link with everybody here as well. And again, thank you. And I said before, I really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you for always, for attending regularly. We really appreciate the interest that you've shown in this and that you did. I do see the link in the chat, so anyone can access that. So thank you. And I'd like to ask if there's any other public comment. Okay, then I think we might be ready to vote. So we'll take a look at Redskin Creek first. Redskin Creek, with the proposed name being Ute Creek. And do I have a motion to recommend that name change?
So, Dr. Wade?
Dr. Way, okay, and a second.
Second, this is Mayor Stout.
Mayor Stout, thank you for the second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Discussion? The motion passes. Sorry, I'm a little rusty. It's been a couple months since I've led one of these meetings, so just bear with me. Okay, motion passes. So let's go ahead and note that. And then we'll take the vote for the second feature, which is Redskin Mountain, and the proposed name is Mount Jerome. So do I have a motion for that particular, to change the name of Redskin Mountain to Mount Jerome?
Madam Chair, with
Yes, thank you.
to Mr. Royball's comments, I do appreciate those. I do think that we take those to heart. In this case, this matter has been pending before us, I think, for over a year now, and we did get tribal feedback supporting the proposal to Mount Jerome. So, and we haven't received any additional proposals or counter proposals or very much public comment. We've got local support on this. So with that, I would move changing the name of Redskin Mountain on case number 5153 to Mount Jerome.
Second, Mayor Stout.
Mayor Stout, okay, thank you. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Did I hear anything? I heard a little bit of feedback. Okay. All right, thank you. That's good. That's been on our plate for a while now, so it's good to have those two features headed to the governor's desk. So that moves us to agenda item number 8. And this is a review and consideration of the USBGN case number 5557, which proposes renaming Negro Draw to Robinson Draw. And we did, so I'll turn it over to Ms. Coleman for an update.
Thank you, Chair Gonzalez. Yeah, I will do my best to provide an update here too. And of course, if I miss anything, please feel free to correct me on this. But again, this is, consideration of the renaming proposal of Negro Draw to Robinson Draw. Since the last CGNA meeting in November, we have reached out to the original proponent of the renaming proposal, so Robinson Draw, and as well as the U.S. Forest Service, a point of contacts there to update them on the additional research and findings that were completed by History Colorado, indicating that genealogical records may show a different spelling of the last name from Robinson to Roybison, so that's Robison. The proponent of the original proposal here of Robinson has indicated her support for that spelling change based on review of that historical documentation, and the USFS, the United States Forest Service, has also affirmed their support for the change too. So it's my understanding that the USBGN has now formally amended the original proposal to reflect the spelling change to Roibusin, but we may want to quickly pause a moment to ask Ms. Runyon to confirm that that sort of amendment has happened to the original proposal.
Thank you, Stacey. Yes, that is correct. Yes, well, in large part due to your communication with the proponent and back and forth, the proponent has confirmed that they're okay with the Robeson amendment, and we have updated the BGN's records. And as far as we're concerned, that is now the name up for consideration. So yes, thank you. I can confirm that.
Appreciate that, Jenny. Thank you.
Sure.
To add to the updates for this particular proposal, it's also our understanding that only the Southern Ute tribe is interested in further reviewing this particular proposal, and I can provide a little background again on that. At that same September monthly CCIA, Colorado Commission of Indian Affairs, feedback call with the tribes that occurred last September on this particular pending proposal, Director Rizzo, again with the Southern Ute tribe, at the time requested additional time for the tribe to review this renaming proposal. Since September, I have reached out to Director Rizzo on a regular basis to try to obtain a status update on the review and simply try to get any sort of estimated timeline regarding the possible completion of a tribe's review and their internal discussions. Unfortunately, at this time, Dr. Rizzo has not provided an update, and it's again unclear what the status of the tribe's review and any proposed timeline for completion of that review is, although we have respectfully and earnestly attempted to, obtain that update. So that's where that particular piece stands, but otherwise tribal outreach on this particular proposal is otherwise completed pending that. So Chair Gonzalez, I'll hand this back to you unless there are other further updates that I may have missed.
Thanks, Ms. Coleman. I think you covered everything that we were needing from you. So thank you. And thank you for doing due diligence with the tribes. We really appreciate your efforts. And so is there any comment or question about this particular case from the board? And then we'll take public comment.
I have a question. So do we think there might be other avenues to try to connect with Director Rizzo to hopefully get a sense of a timeline? I would lean towards waiting since they requested more time, but it would be probably helpful for us if we could maybe get a sense of like how long we can expect to wait. So are there any other options we have to try to connect with Director Rizzo?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shawada, for that question. I'll turn it over to Ms. Coleman.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Shawada. At this point in time, we've consistently reach out via email and also direct phone call. I've talked to Director Rizzo, and she's indicated that she would provide an update, but has not responded with an update. And that's been monthly, many times a month since September, that I would reach out. I've also tried to catch her in person when I've been down in Ignacio as well, but have not had that opportunity to connect there too. So we have tried, I guess maybe 3 different methods to try to obtain a status update. And certainly, any form of an update would be helpful just to provide us some context on that timeline, as you mentioned, so that we could sort of just be able to be better informed on that and any decision-making process there on the board's end. So, I'd be happy to take some feedback or recommendations on maybe or brainstorm here on another possible way that we might be able to conduct additional outreach. But at this time, those are the methods that I've attempted so far.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Any other comment? Do we as a board feel it's okay to go forward with this, or would we like to give more time or try like Ms. Coleman said, brainstorm a different method of trying to get a hold of the director? Dr.
I personally think we should move ahead. This has been, what's that expression, hanging fire for a long time.
Mhm.
And I don't think we're going to be, well, in light of the past history, hearing from Rizzo anytime soon. So
Thanks, Dr. Way. Any other thoughts? Yes, Dr. Ishwata.
Yeah, with all respect to Dr. Way, I would be uncomfortable moving forward, given that there was the explicit request from the tribes to pause. And so for that reason, you know, I think I wouldn't be ready to commit to moving forward today.
Thank you, Dr. Ishwata. Other board members? Yes.
Maybe a
Director.
question for Ms. Coleman. Given that we've got the approval from the sponsor of the naming proposal to shift this to Robeson, this kind of shifts this into a new place here for us, I think. And so I'm wondering if we ought to, if you think that waiting like another month, I tend to agree with Dr. Way that this is one that's we've had also pending before us for, I think, close to the year here. But at the same time, I understand Dr. Ishiwata's interest given the request. So wasn't sure if you know, with the new information that I think unless we had this information earlier, the proponents' support for shifting this to Robeson, I think has happened since our last meeting, correct?
Yes, that is correct. The shift to Roibeson with the spelling change there. We were able to confirm that between the last meeting and now. If I may sort of have leeway to throw out maybe another outreach idea. I mean, the only other thing that I can think of is potentially trying to request time with the tribal council in their monthly meetings, and to see if we can, you know, sort of have a moment, you know, a 30-minute slot before them to be able to present this and see if they can provide us at least, you know, a status update, but maybe even, you know, formal feedback or comment. I'm not unsure that, you know, I can't say with certainty that could be done within before the next meeting, but that's the only other thing that I can think of.
And thank you for that, Ms. Coleman. And I think that given our meetings are now being scheduled every other month, I think that you know, that gives it another 60 days. And so just wondering then, you know, if we decide on this, then I'd certainly want to take up the matter. Looking for other board input, because I think I could go either way. But if we were to wait, I think that you know, extending this to the next meeting another 60 days is kind of, I think, the limits to where I think I'm getting comfortable.
This is Mayor Stout. I think that requesting time on the agenda, if that would it would give us one of two things. One, it would give us the opportunity to get a response, or two, it would give us some certainty that we have exhausted all of our efforts to try to get the appropriate input. That would give me comfort moving forward as well. So I support this sort of, I'm not sure if it's a last ditch effort, but I would support this approach, but echoing the sentiment that we have had this before us for a long period of time, and that at the next meeting, I would hope we would be moving forward with a decision.
Tim,
I'm fine with moving forward.
Representative Will, I'm sorry, could you repeat yourself? Couldn't really hear you.
I said I'm fine with moving forward.
With moving forward with the vote.
I mean, if it was that important, we'd have heard back. So if it was critical.
Okay, thank you for that input. Other board members?
This is Director Redhorse. I just wanted to offer Stacy our support in getting on the council agenda. And I think it's not necessarily, yes, reviewing the proposal, but perhaps opening up the conversation in front of council of how is the appropriate way to receive feedback from proposals, since the way we've been operating is not very expedient, and maybe they can offer us another way in addition to providing feedback on this proposal too. So I understand, and I am of the time frame that we have been reviewing this particular proposal, but I think at this time I'm ready to wait another meeting to give that last effort and see if we can get in front of both of tribal councils to have that discussion with them.
Thanks, Director Redhorse. Thank you very much. And so just to clarify, Director Redhorse, you would be able to help us get on the agenda of the council meetings?
I would do my best to help us get on the council agendas to see if we can have that conversation in front of council.
Great, thank you very much. Other thoughts from other board members? Just a little procedural question, Director Mock. So do we open this up for public comment at this point?
Excuse me, sorry about that. Yeah, we can continue to open it up each time we kind of have it on the agenda and have a conversation like this to public comment. I think that's entirely appropriate. It's never I think it's obviously best err on the side of public comment when we can. So I'm fine with that.
Great, then I'd like to open it up to the public. Is there any comment from any of the public members, community members?
JD has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Roybal.
There's something I'd like to remind everybody, and I'm not speaking for any nation or anything, I'm just speaking for myself. There's two concerns I have. One of them is that I hope this doesn't become a political venue, you know, where we have to rush this through just so somebody can get an attaboy. These names have been there for a while, and to have due consideration, I think, is very, very important. Something else I'd like to mention is how precarious this is. Just the other day, I was driving through town, and in the back of somebody's truck with their American spewing, you know, diesel exhaust all over. He had the OK sign on the back of his window. If you take a look at what's happening at the Capitol, and you see a representative of somebody shot through her house. I've had rocks thrown in my house. This issue is very precarious. And when you're out here, I'm saying, you know, when you're standing up front and center, it becomes something different. And so we have to tread kind of lightly. And quite honestly, that's why I hate to show my face. And I don't know if I mentioned this to this board or not, this group, but somebody in my own driveway came by and they offered to kill my grandma because she's black. She's already dead, but it just, because of the situation that we're in and the hatred that's being allowed to go forward, we have to understand some people are afraid to come forward because this issue is daunting. Because now if you hear all the rhetoric, they're talking about changing the name of birds and insects, and I mean, we go on and on. Now somebody's going to attack Dr. Martin Luther King. I mean, this thing, it's becoming something that I don't think it was meant to be. We're supposed to show progress as we move forward. And so I think if we afford the time that's necessary to have people get together and decide what direction they're going to do instead of rushing this through. And I understand the time limit. I really do, believe me. Pero todo es muy importante. This is a very important thing that we're doing. And because we have those moments of doubt, and we understand what's going on here, we Those, I think we have to understand the situation that we're in. People aren't happy, folks. Remember, this is who these people honor, you know. And I know for a fact, people think the 45th president is actually sent from God. I mean, so we have to understand, people, we're not just talking about people changing their names. These people have been elevated to statures of actual gods to some of these people. So as we move forward, I would really like everybody to keep that in the back of their mind and understand how precarious this is for a lot of folks, you know, to be here. And that's why when I see this group here, I'm absolutely unequivocally honored to see folks that are willing to stand up and be front and center, willing to take the punches, because it's going to get hard. And I'm sure you folks have heard things that I've never even heard. Again, I'd just like to say that in corazón, from my heart, I really mean this. So I think allowing time for this thing to go through, I think is very important, instead of rushing these things through, because this is going to be, once it's changed, that's going to be here for a long time, because I don't think this opportunity is going to come very often. Otra vez, muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roybal. Any other comment? And I think what I'm leaning toward is addressing it at our next meeting. So giving it another 60 days and, you know, trying to get, like Director Redhorse and Ms. Coleman said, trying to get on the tribal council agenda, the meeting agenda, and asking, you know, what is the best way to seek your input on these matters. So I'm very comfortable with that. So if there's any objection, you know, please say so. And just another quick procedural question, Director Mock. Does this require a vote?
That's actually a good question. And I'm going to look to AG Mercer for a little bit of guidance. I think if we just sort of have the agreement of the board, we've agreed to go ahead and postpone it to the next meeting. But Ms. Mercer?
Thank you, Director Mock. Yes, that's been the board's practice in the past, is not to require a motion and a vote to just continue consideration of a matter. If folks wanted to be more formal about it, you could certainly call for a vote, but I don't feel that it's necessary here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, AG Mercer. So then I'll just say that we'll table it until next meeting, and we'll do some more diligent work on connecting with the tribe. So thank you all for that really important conversation. And Mr. Roybal, thank you for reminding us that this is indeed important work and should be done with very deliberate intentions. So sometimes it's very slow work. Okay, so moving on to our next case, which is agenda item number 9. This is the review and consideration of USBGN case 5765, which is the renaming of Dead Mexican Gulch to Jose Velarde Gulch. And we have an update from Ms. Coleman.
Yes, thank you, Chair Gonzalez. So since our last CGNAB meeting in November, or I should say, as noted at our last CGNAB meeting noted in November, we'll start there first to give a little background. In August, the Garfield County Commission, at their regular public meetings, suggested an alternative renaming proposal of Lost Sheepherder Gulch in lieu of Jose Velarde Gulch. During that county commission meeting, commissioners expressed concern over the possible criminal history of Jose Velarde and chose to go with the alternative naming proposal instead, which is Lost Sheepherder's Gulch. In response to this, the Glenwood Springs City Council also supports this alternative name of Lost Sheepher's Gulch, and the Rifle City Council supports a name change, but didn't indicate any specific support for a particular renaming proposal, other than it should be named renamed. This month, the Garfield County Commission formally submitted Lost Sheepher's Gulch to the USBGN as a renaming proposal. We have gone ahead and updated the original proponent for Jose Velarde Gulch, and he has confirmed that he supports the Garfield County Commission's alternative proposal, so Lost Sheepher's Gulch. And I guess Miss Runyon, if you can correct me if I'm wrong here on the process piece of the update, but I believe the original renaming proposal of Jose Velarde Gulch has now been withdrawn, and the renaming proposal of Lost Sheepher's Gulch is the one up for I guess, consideration moving forward. If you wouldn't mind confirming that process piece.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Yes, absolutely. Ms. Coleman, you're absolutely right. With the communication, again, thank you to you with the original proponent. They understand the concerns with Jose Velarde and now endorse the name put forward by the county government. So we have updated the quarterly review list to mark Jose Velarde Gulch withdrawn. And in the review list that was just finished today and posted online, we now have Lost Sheepherder Gulch as the one name up for consideration. So yes, we're essentially back to square one, but we already have a county support. So that's one thing. They're the proponent, so that's a good step forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And I mean, and I guess I also just want to emphasize how recently this proposal was submitted, just a mere, I think maybe not even 2 weeks ago. So it's, while this has been sort of raised by the Garfield County Commission since August of last year, the formal renaming proposal was only submitted recently. So at this point, the U.S. Forest Service has not yet completed its internal review and discussions on this proposal either. They are conducting that at this time, and we don't have a estimated timeline on when their review will be completed, but we'll certainly be in touch with our point of contacts there to try to obtain an estimated timeline as soon as possible. So that process is now happening internally on the new proposal. Also, we've been keeping the Southern Ute tribe updated on these, developments as well. Again, it's my understanding that only the Southern Ute tribe is interested in sort of further reviewing this particular proposal at that September meeting last year. In addition to Robinson Draw, now Robinson Draw, Director Rizzo had also indicated an interest for additional time for the tribe to review this particular proposal as well. And so, with the new proposal in hand, I think, it may warrant some additional maybe review time there, just as the U.S. Forest Service is needing it as well. But I had been reaching out to her since September on a regular basis to try to obtain a status update on their review, and was unable, unfortunately, to receive one from Director Rizzo, so similar to other proposals. And so that sort of additional status update on their pending review is unknown at this time. So considering discussion in the last for the last renaming proposal, we may want to consider adding this to the potential agenda item to raise before the tribal council, if we're going to have the opportunity to be able to have some of their time. So I think that's it updates wise, Chair Gonzalez.
Thanks so much, Ms. Coleman, and thank you, Ms. Runyon, for those updates. Any discussion, comments, questions about this particular case?
This seems like a pretty easy case to table tonight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we feel like there's any additional research that needs to be done that we haven't indicated, or Anything along those lines? And I guess I'm just wondering also, are there preliminary thoughts about the proposed name, the Lost Sheep Herder Gulch name?
I support the Lost Sheep Herder name.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Representative Will.
I would just say, Madam Chair, if I may, that I think this is progress. We kind of wrestled with this in the various spellings and worked with the local communities. I think it's good that we've got what is it, Garfield County, as well as I think you had one of the other local governments as well, Ms. Coleman.
Yeah, it was City of Glenwood Springs and also the City of Rifle. So yes.
Okay, and so then I think we're just waiting for U.S. Forest Service review and potentially the Southern Ute. So I'm fine with waiting another 60 days here. I don't know what our timeline looks like now necessarily like that because it is somewhat new in terms of the changes, but appreciate kind of getting to a point where we've got progress and the proponent has agreed to shift their proposal.
Thank you, Director Mock. And so with that, any public comment on this case? Yes, Mr. Roybal and then Jesse. Mr. Roybal.
I'm sorry, my friends. This is one I can get behind, so I just wanted to give my support. So it doesn't sound like I'm always negative, but I will comment that I've actually heard cattle. I've gone after them in the mountains and stuff. It'd be better if it was like Lost Sheep Gulch, because you intend to lose sheep in the gulch as opposed to the actual herders themselves. But anyway, I just wanted to say, yeah, this is one I can get behind, and yeah, it's good to see it change to something different.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Zeiler, did you unmute?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Okay, fine. All right, Jesse, Mr. Net.
Hey, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on this one. We are, Forest Service is glad to see Jose Velarde come off of this one just due to the questionable nature of the past and what happened. And there was also that confusion about the spelling of the name. Was it Velarde with a V or Velarde with a B? So we are, looking forward to processing this one. I did just receive this one a couple days ago, so I tried to reach out to our forest leadership for comment, but it was just too quick of a turnaround. So we'll hopefully have something over the next, 30 to 60 days ahead of the next meeting, and we'll communicate that through Jenny. I guess the only question that we did have was, is there a story behind the lost sheep herder? Who was the lost sheep herder? That was just kind of a question that was being bounced around. We didn't know if that was a reference to this Velarde person or if, there's some other sort of tale that Garfield County knows of or something. So that is just kind of one question that does spiral around. So if there's any sort of information about that story or that particular person, we'd love to include it in our record. But yeah, I'll be working with forest leadership and our national office for the official agency opinion, hopefully ahead of the next meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you for raising that issue. So yeah, I'd be interested in what others think about that as well. So does the lost sheep herder indeed refer back to Mr. Velarde? And if so, are we okay with that? Or we may never know. Ms. Coleman.
I guess if I just may offer, the Garfield County Commission meetings are recorded, and this one was recorded in August. I can quickly try to find it and put it into the chat so that people can get it right away, and maybe we can find a way to link to it in another manner, so that the public will have sort of a guiding a guiding pathway to it. But it may be helpful for the Forest Service, and those in the review process there to maybe watch, that particular piece of the discussion to have a better understanding of where the county commissioners were maybe coming from there. And that might be helpful or illuminating. It was right at the beginning of the meeting, so you actually don't have to sort of like try to find it within the full time frame. But and I'll quickly look for that now, like I said, but that may be the best way to get a direct understanding, without, I guess, maybe hearing from them directly at another meeting, sort of what the purpose of that was. So
Thank you for that, Ms. Coleman. That'd be really helpful. Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Well, hearing none, I propose we wait until our next meeting to address this, and we'll do our diligent work in the meantime, and we'll wait to hear from the Forest Service. So thank you all for that conversation. And so that moves us to a brand new, well, sort of new item, agenda item 10 is the update from Ms. Runyon of the USBGN case number 5480, which proposes a renaming of Kit Carson Mountain to Frustum Peak. So Ms. Runyon, I think I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair Gonzalez. Yes, this is an old but also new case, I guess you could say. I know that your board has discussed at least one meeting, if not more, that I believe it was in 2021, we received a proposal to change the name of Kit Carson Mountain to Frustum Peak. And this is actually an historical name for that particular feature. If you look back to the Wheeler survey of the late 1800s, it was labeled Frustum Peak. Now the map is a very small scale. It's hard to tell exactly what the name applied to, but it's not a name that this particular proponent just, should we say, made up for this exercise. It is an historical name for that feature. And so we reached out to local authorities, and it sort of sat in limbo for a while. And then more recently, last fall, we received a second proposal to change the name of Kit Carson Mountain to Lawrence Peak. It was for John Lawrence, who was one of the early founders of Saguache, that was the city and the county. And then not too long after, and in fact, it was right after your November meeting, I believe, when you had discussed this one, there was some media coverage, and that resulted, I presume, then in a third proposal that's come in for Tabawatch Ute Peak, obviously for the Tabawatch Ute tribe that was from that part of the state. And then just in the past week or 10 days, we received a fourth proposal. Here we go, shades of Mount Evans, right? To change the name to Mount Crestone. And that was submitted by the town council or the town trustees of the town of Crestone. And I don't know, I should have checked with Ms. Coleman earlier. Is there any way I can share my screen? Is it possible, or?
Yes, I can give you permission, Jenny. Hold on just a second.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a couple of maps, which I think will help. There's a little bit of confusion regarding the name itself.
Okay, you can try it now.
Okay, so I click on the share screen. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, okay, so I think it's the one I wanted to open. Okay, if you would tell me when you see something.
We see it, yes, thank you.
See a map? Okay. Okay, let me get rid of that little thing. Okay, so you might recall at the November meeting when you introduced this proposal, I did make a comment that there was some confusion about the application of various names in the area, and that was quoted in the news article, and we actually got a follow-up from the reporter asking us to elaborate on what the confusion was. So if you'll bear with me a second, I want to kind of explain some of the geography of the area, and certainly if anyone knows this area and can help us out. As you can see, this is fairly complex. So we have up here, can you see my cursor moving up on the upper left, you see Kit Carson Mountain.
Yes.
Yes.
Labeled, okay, thanks. Labeled on the topographic map. So this is Kit Carson Mountain, and essentially an elongated ridge. There are two named peaks on that ridge, Challenger Point and Columbia Point. Most of you know that those were named for the two space shuttle accidents. Those were both BGN decisions back in 1987 and then in 2003. The point in the middle of the range, or the middle of the peak, I should say, I'm sorry, yeah, the middle of the ridge, is actually officially unnamed. And this is perfectly acceptable. You can have named peaks on a larger named ridge. I mean, think about the Rocky Mountains, you know, it's full of individually named peaks. That's perfectly fine. The one in the middle happens to be unnamed. Now, looking way back in 1906, there actually was a BGN decision to name that Kit Carson Peak. But then over the subsequent, 60 plus years, Kit Carson Peak almost, should we say, almost morphed into Kit Carson Mountain. And in 1970, the BGN reviewed this and decided that, in fact, yes, Kit Carson Mountain was the appropriate name, and it applied to the entire ridge, the area outlined more or less here with the oval. And then in 2011, we received two proposals to apply a name to that central, the middle unnamed peak. One was Tranquility Peak. The idea was to sort of continue the theme here of Challenger, Tranquility, and Columbia. That was not approved by the BGN. At the same meeting, the BGN was asked to essentially reinstate Kit Carson Peak to the central peak. It also was disapproved at the same meeting. And the feeling at the time was, even then, a decade ago, there were already some concerns being voiced about Kit Carson's history, and the BGN did not wish to add yet another Kit Carson name to the map. So as a result of that 2011 meeting, that middle peak was left unnamed, as it is still today. So okay, keep that in mind if you would. And now we'll move down here to the southeast, and you'll see there's a larger peak, a ridge called Crestone Peaks, plural. It's again a sort of oval outlined area, Crestone Peaks. That was a 1969 BGN decision. And parts of Crestone Peaks, there's again named peaks on that larger ridge, Crestone Peak, also 1969, Crestone Needle, and Broken Hand Peak that was approved a year later. So if you can keep in mind all these sort of Crestone names here, I'm going to switch to another slide if I can. Bear with me here. Again, let me know when you see the image. Should be seeing a...
Still the same map.
Still the same map. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen again. Sometimes it can be a delay in changing screens. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. Let me just try again. Oh, new share is an option, apparently. Okay. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Any change yet?
That worked, Jenny.
Got it? Okay, cool. All right, so basically it's saying the same thing here, just you're not seeing the topographic map. Now you're seeing the more of the 3D representation from Google. Hopefully it sort of makes it clear too that the same idea. You've got Kit Carson Mountain is this almost called a massif over here, a ridge over here with Challenger Point, the unnamed peak, and Columbia Point. And then further to the southeast, we have Crestone Peaks, Crestone Peak, Crestone Needle, and Broken Hand Peak. All right, so I'm going to try one other. Let's see if this is going to work. Let's see here. Okay, any chance you're seeing a Google Earth image by chance?
Not quite yet, Jenny.
Not yet. Okay, there's always a delay, isn't there? Yeah. Okay, go back to new share. Let me try this again. Oh, I see. Oh, there we are. Okay.
Now it's there.
Yep. Okay. All right. So this is pretty cool. I don't know if you've played around with Google Earth before, but you can move it around and you can reorient the direction. You can do the different tilts so you can see the geography. Again, I'm showing the same thing again, just with the same labels, the same geography, but I wanted to show the perspective of, if I zoom out, here's the town of Crestone over here. And so the reason the town of Crestone trustees have proposed Crestone, well, they proposed Mount Crestone, because in their minds, the peaks that they can see from their town looking up toward the ridgeline, what they're seeing is the more northwestern, the Kit Carson Mountain. They argue this has always been known as Kit Carson Peak. I'm sorry, Crestone Peak. My apologies. They've always argued this has been called Crestone Peak because that's where the town name came from. They claim they cannot see the more southeastern clump of peaks from Crestone. They can see what's over here. So they say that what we have always called Kit Carson Mountain, they have always known as Crestone Peak. Now, having said that, they recognize there's already a Crestone Peak just a short distance away. We saw that a minute ago. So they want to modify the name to Crestone Mountain. Sorry, gosh, Mount Crestone. It was late in the day, sorry. Mount Crestone is a name they've proposed to retain the Crestone reference, but not confuse it with Crestone Peak. So that's a brand new proposal that came in just, again, in the last week or 10 days. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can go back to discussion. Let's see. Okay, here we are. Hopefully, so again, now we have 4 proposals pending. Frustum Peak was on a previous review list that's still active. Lawrence Peak and Tapawatch Ute Peak are on the brand new review list that came out today. And Mount Crestone will be on the next quarterly review list. Now, because the new review list has just come out today, we have not yet done our typical tribal outreach. And the way we do that is to send a link to the review list to all 574 recognized tribes with an invitation to comment. And we say that if they don't comment in 60 days, we assume they have no opinion. Or if they don't indicate they need more time, they obviously will honor any time they need to review the matter. So it's entirely possible, and I shouldn't speculate, but it's possible we may yet get another proposal from maybe one of the Ute tribes with an interest in the area. We don't know. Obviously, if we do, we'll share it with you. I know Stacy's offered to also reach out to the tribes at some point once our review is underway. So anyway, this is very much just a heads up at this point, but I hope it was helpful to show the geography and the fact that the introduction now of Mount Crestone as another Crestone name in the area. You would conceivably have Mount Crestone, Crestone Peak, Crestone Peaks, Crestone Needle, all within very close proximity. And what would that look like for, say, search and rescue? That's a concern in these mountainous areas. If you're sending somebody up to Crestone, where are you sending them? So that's something maybe even DNR has some thoughts about. Certainly the county sheriff, hopefully, will have some thoughts. Anyway, I just want to put this all out there, and I appreciate you indulging my time to share the maps, because it's one of these cases where a map tells 1,000 words, right? So if you have any initial questions, we're happy to help. But again, this is still very much in the early stages of review, both at our level and obviously at the state level. We've not heard from the Forest Service yet. As Jesse would tell you, these are brand new for them as well. So then, thank you. Again, I hope that helped.
Thank you, Jenny. That was very helpful. And before you stop sharing your screen, I just want to ask board members if they have any questions about anything that Jenny has pointed out. Super helpful history and geographical context. Director Mock.
So thanks, Ms. Runyon. Let me try and layer this then a little bit more. We got to track with the USBGN's policies on renaming features. Can I just ask if you're able to comment on how the USBGN might rule having sort of somewhat duplicative names nearby?
That's a tough question. Yes, Director Mock, the fact that the BGN has a policy against duplicate names, you could argue that Mount Crestone is not exactly a duplicate of Crestone Peak or Peaks or Needle. But it's similar enough that yes, could cause confusion. But then the BGN also wishes to honor local use and opinion. And if the town of Crestone is the closest town with population, and they are adamant that they've always called that Crestone Peak, they claim they're not confused. Or is it up to us sitting in DC to say, yes, you are confused, you will be confused? That's a tough one. You're weighing different policies, local support, local use and acceptance versus a duplicate name issue. And of course, really in any of these name changes, we're back to the first question, of course, has to be, should the current name be changed? So the debate has to take place first as to whether Kit Carson should be removed. Because if the answer is no, these replacements are all kind of irrelevant. But if the answer is yes, the name should be removed, then now at this point, we've got 4 names on the table. And you could argue every one of them probably has some good merits to it. So I don't know if that helps, but yeah, I can see the BGN, anguishing over this one.
In your time with the USBGN, I appreciate that. Has there ever been sort of a multi reconfiguring if we were to, let's say, consider renaming Kit Carson Mountain as Crestone Mountain and then address the Crestone peaks down to the south there?
I don't recall any examples off the top of my head, but I'll certainly put some thought into that and let you all know if I can think of any other examples. But that's a valid question is, if the town is adamant that Crestone Peak, or what they're recommending, Mount Crestone, be the peaks they can see from their windows, does it make sense, in fact, to remove the other Crestone names and change them to something else? Now, somebody would have to be the proponent. And as we've talked about before, that could be the Colorado board, could be a local resident, could be a tribe, could be any other interested party, could propose changes. We can't initiate it. And I'm not sure that you all could just initiate it without a formal or, a proposal. But that's something worth considering. Are we looking at even a bigger shuffling of names here? Or is it time to address Crestone Peak? I think it'd be important to hear from the 14er community, the hikers, because they may have a very different perception from the town of Crestone. So yeah, I don't know.
A good question.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions or comments from board members? And then we'll open it up to some public questions. Ms. Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Gonzalez. I just wanted to add a few other just clarifying points on this piece, as well as to some of the outreach updates too, from just a CGNAB perspective. But I just wanted to be clear, especially for members of the public that are listening and may have not participated in the last November CGNAB meeting. This wonderful work that Ms. Runyon and the USBGN staff did here, was initiated by some confusion at that last meeting on the original proposal that was introduced then, Frustum Peak, and sort of, there was some questions about, is it just a peak? Is it covering, a specific area? And so, really appreciate the time that the USBGN staff, as well as others from the Forest Service and the original proponent took to, and of course, members of our board and staff here took to sort of work through this in a November subcommittee meeting. So this is sort of the result of that, and really sure to appreciate the time and all of the technical pieces here that went into this. On further outreach, just on the specifically, starting with the tribal outreach component, because these are sort of different proposals coming in at many different times post November meeting. The USBGN has its process that it has to go through, of course, that we've heard here with the quarterly listing, as well as, outreach to tribes in an effort to sort of allow two simultaneous processes happening to an extent. Because we do have the Frustrum proposal out there, we have, sort of started to conduct initial outreach to the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, as well as the Southern Ute tribe, only for these particular proposals, for the sake of efficiency. We've included some summary information on the proposals that have not yet been, formally introduced to the CGNAB. But for additional tribes, staff for both USBGN and CGNAB discussed and felt it was best to let the USBGN process of nationwide federally recognized tribal outreach to occur first, and we can complement that outreach if further efforts are needed. But we want to let that sort of, that process piece be able to move forward without sort of doubling our efforts and maybe being a little inefficient in terms of that. So that's sort of what's, sort of staff came to in terms of, recommended path forward for the parallel outreach at this point in time. And in terms of county outreach, the USBGN takes the lead on that at first. And again, similar to tribal outreach, CGNAB staff here will be there to support USBGN staff on any further additional, outreach needs that they may need after they conduct that initial outreach piece. So, and then last but not least, I also wanted to mention, especially before public comments here, that we have received, some public comments through email and other methods of submitting public comments, and those are, wanted to confirm they have been received, and they will be, added to the public record, as well as the information packets at a later date once the, full USBGN process have been sort of completed and these particular renaming proposals formally introduced to the CGNAB. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for that thorough update. Ms. Runyon, I have a question. So what is the time limit on the national tribal outreach that the USBGN does?
It's 60 days.
60 days, okay.
Yeah. So again, that should go out early next week. Okay. We try and time it so that the 60 days is passed just prior to one of our monthly meetings. It obviously varies as time resources allow, but the goal is if we can get it out in the next week. It's quite a challenge to prepare a comprehensive email list for 574 tribes. It's quite a challenge, and so there's always a lot of emails bounce back, and we go back and forth with updating and looking at websites and the BIA Tribal Leaders Directory and so forth. So it's quite an undertaking every quarter to get that email out to all the tribes. Well, again, we give them 60 days and invite them to comment or to let us know if they need more time. It's obviously it's not the most personal, but Department of the Interior agreed that was the most equitable way to get all proposals in front of all tribes at the same time and give them all a chance to comment, so that we're not trying to speculate which tribes might have an interest in a given geographic area. It's more of a nationwide approach. So yeah. So we'll keep Stacy up to date if we get any responses, and obviously we'll try and keep you guys in the loop on all the communication back and forth, and if we get any responses. And we also have gotten some feedback, not so much, just the one comment opposing a name change for Kit Carson, wanting to keep the name, so citing his contributions throughout his life, not just one or two incidents. And then we've gotten 3 or so emails from individuals also saying it should be Crestone Peak. They live in Crestone, and that's what they've always called that area, is Crestone Peak. So it seems to be the local preference.
Great.
So, but again, we're still very early in the process.
Yeah, we are very early in it. So we'll keep the 60-day limit in mind when we schedule our next meeting, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board on this one? And Jenny, would you stop sharing?
Oh, I apologize. I thought I had
Okay.
already. It's even looking at my map the entire time. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Gosh, now how do I do that?
There we go. Okay. That's good.
Oh, really? Oh, that's it. Okay.
Thank you. So now I can see you. Yeah. So any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Well, then I would like to invite the public to comment on, even though it's very early stage that we're at with this particular case. Any comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Trotter. Mr. Trotter.
Sorry,
There you go.
you got
No,
me now?
no,
Okay. I had to
You're
hit
okay.
the right button.
You're good. You're good.
No. So my name is Richard Trotter. I live here in Saguache. I am the proponent for naming the mountain Lawrence after the founder of the county. And I'm just wondering if I have something I'd like to say, but I was just wondering if people would like to hear my reasoning behind suggesting it. Would that be okay to press on with that?
Sure, go ahead and share.
Okay, so I've done a little bit of research around here, and initially I approached the Saguache County Museum to see if they would support naming after John Lawrence. John Lawrence was the founder of the county. He moved up here with several Hispanic families in about I think it was 1867 was when he moved here and established the town of Saguache and the area around Saguache. But now I'm already losing my track here. So I approached the museum about it and I thought maybe they would support it, but they actually turned me down. So they don't want to support the name over here. And I almost gave up, but then I thought about an old saying that if you're remembered by your friends, that's awesome. But if you're remembered by your enemies, that's almost as good. And the reasoning behind them not supporting John Lawrence is there are still families here in Saguache that are mad at him 115 years later about something that happened. I guess he could be kind of an ornery kind of a guy. So, but what I see out of it, I'm a amateur historian, and I've been doing some research on him. There's some of the most important things, I think, is he kept a diary for 40 years of things that happened here in the county. He was a translator for Hispanic representatives early on during the territorial legislature. He served in the state legislature, and among other things, he was just a big advocate for Saguache County. Saguache County is as big as it is, I think, because that's how he was able to set it up. I have some theories on that, and it has to do with the railroads coming through and over Old Cochetopa Pass, but that's could be for another day. So that's the basic thing. Normally I wouldn't participate in something like this, but he's just a really interesting person. And I think in a time when there was a lot of division, he was able to and he wasn't totally able, and he wasn't an advocate, but he was able to bring people together more so here. He learned Spanish on his own. He learned Ute. He was a friend of Chief Ure. And if the Utes came to town to trade or whatever, they would stay at his ranch, which is actually 3 miles away from where I'm sitting right now. And so there was that communication that a lot of other people didn't believe in or didn't have in those days, to put it nicely. And then the other thing I was thinking of too, and then I'll go ahead and lay off the Crestone. Actually, all the points that you brought up here, I kind of thought about. We already have Crestone Needle, Crestone Peak, and we have Crestone Town. Kit Carson has a whole county and a city named after him. I'm not sure, but I think there's some Tabawatch. I just heard that tonight. There might be something named Tabawatch up by Salida. But the only thing John Lawrence has named after him is a ditch here in Saguache. And it ran by his old house. It supplied that with water, and later on it tied into a bigger ditch that supplied the town reservoir that supplied the town of Saguache with water. So among other things, it's kind of it's a bigger picture, and I encourage people to kind of take a look. I would call him, you might be able to find some bad things about him, but I think he was kind of a humanist, and he took people at their face value, whether they were good or bad. It didn't matter what color they were. And I take that as kind of the theme of a lot of the renaming. But that said, I don't have support from the county museum. And so I'll leave it with you. If anyone would like more information on it, I can sure help. And if you'd like to get a hold of me, I'd like to help out with that. I think that's it. I'm sure I had a lot more to say, but I've probably taken enough time.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mr. Trotter, for sharing that. And I'm really intrigued. So I want to know why people are mad at him.
I'm not exactly sure. I just found that out the other day. So, but I'm going to find out. So,
well, we appreciate your participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other public comment?
Yeah, Dr. Gonzalez, this is John Carson.
Okay, Mr. Carson.
And I trust you all got the information I sent up to you.
Yes, we did.
Okay. And again, I just tonight saw the original November 2020 proposal information summary here. And I don't know Mr. Clement. I'm not the bad mouth him, but he just gave a general statement that you could find anywhere. There's no documentation to it. Again, I trust the entire board were given copies of what I sent. And I see, there's 4 or 5 university people here, and I'm sure things haven't changed in the last 40 years, but if a student, when I was going to school, turned in an undocumented paper, it was worthless. So I gave you everything I've got, again, especially the primary sources from the orders of correspondence, the letters, and reports from the Civil War era that included the controversy, if you want to use that word, I guess, old time period down in New Mexico. And I just gave you a little brief thing. I could send you more material. I didn't even touch on Kit and his role with John Fremont's expeditions, his actions that, quite frankly, saved General Kearny out at San Pasqual during the war with Mexico out in California, his efforts out here on the plains with William Bent, developing a peaceful relationship, especially with the Cheyenne and Arapaho. Again, I assumed that, and I know that's not a good thing, that y'all got a copy of that. If anybody has any concerns or questions, I'd be more than happy to address those.
Thank you for that, Mr. Carson. And I mean, feel free to send more material to us. We'd be interested. Ms. Kizim, is that right?
Yes, my name is Kizim Mackay, and I'm a trustee with the town of Crestone. And sorry for getting the, our application in, but trying to round up lots of people and lots of stories took its own time over the Christmas holidays. I wanted to say I've lived in the town of Crestone for 40 years. I've lived in the greater area for 50 years. And when I came to Crestone, there were still a lot of the old timers around and people descending from the miners' days. And I was always told that the name of that big mountain was Crestone Peak. And according to the old timers, there again, we had Crestone Peak, and then we had the Needles, which was plural. So I know you showed the maps, but then there's local usage. And so for a long time, I thought there was Crestone Peak and then the two needles, which were the east and the west needles. Over time then, and seeing what was actually on the maps, it was like, oh no, this is Kit Carson, and there is Crestone Peak, and there is the Crestone Needle as one. And people in Crestone, I thought it was a good point about confusion. Nobody confuses the Crestone Needle with Crestone Peak. People know where they are. They're very large mountains. You kind of know which one you're going up. So it's been a dilemma. For many years, I always heard Kit Carson called Crestone Peak. And a lot of the locals just really avoided calling that mountain Kit Carson. Kit Carson had a reputation that was not all that good in the valley. Not pleasant with the Native Americans, and you know, people did not like to use the name Kit Carson. And as I put together the proposal and I hope you'll really look at it, I did a lot of research of getting old photographs, old postcards, old maps that show one photo. I think it might be dated to, you know, the early 1900s. Couldn't have an actual date, but it could be 1904, maybe 1910, that shows a picture of downtown streets with a mountain above the town and called Crestone Peak. And you look at all the old postcards, they called it Crestone Peak. And I also sent in that proposal the town stationery, which shows a range of the mountains. And there again, that mountain was called Crestone Peak. And then you see on there, they have the needles. So this confusion's gone on really a long time. On that map of the head of the stationery in the town of Crestone, they had Kit Carson as being another flat top mountain that's sort of to the north and to the east. And so this is an attempt here to twofold. One is to remove the name Kit Carson, which is an offensive name to the people in the valley and broader. Native Americans have found the name offensive. You know the history on this. And then to go back with what the historical name was. Well, Crestone Peak has already been taken and it's been renamed for a really long time. So this is not an attempt to say, okay, we're going to rename Crestone Peak and then, oh, we're going to have two needles again. You know, it's looking at having the smallest amount of impact for maps, for mountain climbers, for peak baggers. And when you look at the mountain and you see that flat ridge, you know, we've got Challenger Peak and a lot of locals, new people have started calling it Challenger. I don't want to call it Kit Carson. And the old timers call it Crestone Peak. And so as I surveyed people, and the town did an outreach amongst people about what name they would like to see, they went back to the historical, like, it's always been Crestone Peak. And I'm like, we can't call it Crestone Peak, of Mount Crestone, because history goes all the way back to the Spanish names of Coxcomb. And when you look at the mountain, this top ridge across it relates to that old Spanish coxcomb shape, where it's got its name, where the town's got its name. The two creeks, the creeks that merge below the mountain is called Crestone Creek. And, you know, it just has 140 years of historical usage. And the idea of calling one Mount Crestone, the other one Crestone Peak, and the Crestone Needle, I think the locals kind of figure it out. And it's an effort to go with what the historical name was, rather to impose a name that doesn't have any history with that immediate geographical area. I was talking to someone today who's been 35 years in Saguache, and she's like, I've always known it as Crestone Peak. So there's the local usage, and then other names coming in, I think would kind of really have to pass the locals test if something else was proposed, and something that really honors the history of the area. And so I hope you'll really look at that proposal. If you need more information, I really hope that you will contact me. Stacy Coleman and I have been in a little bit of communication. And so if you need more documentation, the town would be very happy to work with all you folks to come to have an agreeable resolution to the saving issue. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you looking at it.
Thank you for all of that, Kizan. I really appreciate all of that history, that context that you provided, and the offer for additional information. Director Mock.
Mute. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kizan. Appreciate you being here. And for that, I've just got one quick question, since you seem to be familiar with the area. Do you know what's the backcountry search and rescue team that operates in your area? Because I think this is one of those things that if we were to consider multiple Crestone mountains and peaks, that I think we'd want to get some input from them as well as the sheriff.
You're looking at like search and rescue. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That would be the Saguache County. Yeah, that's our Saguache County Search and Rescue. They cover the whole county, and then we have our own local, guys in the town who are the first responders that come out of the town of Crestone. If there's something a little larger, of course, we'll get in. The sheriff will bring in a team, and then we also relate quite a bit with the search and rescue that comes out of West Cliff, and they're on the other side of us. And so quite often the two teams really coordinate with each other. But our local, we have our local search and rescue, and the person in charge of that is the Saguache County Sheriff Dan Warwick.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's Custer County Search and Rescue is on the other side of the mountain, and they cooperate quite a bit together.
Thank you. Mr. Carson, I saw you unmute during that comment. Did you want to add something?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. Any other comment from the public? All right, then we will revisit this. Perhaps more proposals will come in to the BGN in the time being, and we'll put this on the agenda for the next meeting. So thank you all for the conversation. And that brings us to our, let's see, agenda item number 12. Oh, number 11, sorry. And for general public comment. So I want to open up the floor to any of our community members for final comment. Yes, Mr. Roybal.
I just wanted to say, again, thank you guys for what you do, okay? It starts a whole new year. So here we go, onward. In solidarity, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Roybal. I'm sorry, I interrupted your final words there.
Está bueno. Buenas noches y todo. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you. Thank you for your gratitude and for your presence. All right, well, that brings us to agenda item 12, which is scheduling our next meeting. So we will go ahead and look at 2 months from now. We'll skip a month and then we'll come back in, oh my gosh, it's gonna be April. So how did we want to proceed with that, Tim? Is there a particular date that you had in mind?
Yeah, actually, now that we've got the legislative session in order, I think I'd poll our legislators because I think the evening meetings and their schedules and committees sometimes in the past had kind of given us some dates and times. I know in the past were meeting on, I believe it's Thursday evenings. So Senator Will, I don't know if you're able to let us know what your schedule might look like and what times sort of might or might not work during the week.
Yeah, so this year, my committee, and I can't speak for Senator Exum and stuff, but Thursdays would work for me this year. Because most of my committee stuff's on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure if Senator Exum is able to let us know or type something in the chat and if Thursday evenings work for you as well. Gotcha. Thank you. So maybe Dr. Way.
I feel a little awkward about saying this, but for the spring semester, my department scheduled me for a seminar on Thursday evening. Actually, in the overall scheme of things, it's more important, that the legislators be there than myself. But I thought I'd at least mention to you that I will be unavailable on Thursdays evenings.
Oh, thank you. In no worries. I think we'd like to see if we can get as much participation from everybody. So Senator Will, if I can ask you one more time, is there another day of the week that might work? I mean, is this Wednesday is a good time, or is this kind of tight with, obviously Senator Exum's in a committee hearing right now, so I know that's kind of challenging.
Right, yeah, Wednesdays aren't too good for me, but.
What do Tuesdays look like?
Yeah, Tuesday be better than Wednesday.
Okay, Senator Exum, I'm not sure if that works for you on Tuesdays. How does that work in?
I actually have, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I actually have a committee Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But Thursday is upon adjournment, so sometimes Thursday evening is available. And are we going to back to our monthly meetings?
It would be, I think we're going to go back to every other month. So we would be looking perhaps towards March, I think would be the next meeting. How about Mondays? Do Mondays work?
Mondays is actually better. I don't have committee on Monday.
I don't have a committee on Monday either. So.
Then what about the rest of the committee? Do we have constraints on Monday evenings?
It depends on the Mondays. This is Mayor Stout. We have workshops at the very least the Mondays just before the first and third Wednesdays of the month. So it's not always the first and the third Wednesday because sometimes a Wednesday, like Wednesday the 1st falls on a Wednesday, and so it'd be the 30th that we would have a meeting.
So looking at March, I think that would include March 4th and March 18th for you for the first and third Wednesday. So that would make it Monday, March 11th or the 25th.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Committee members, do we have any issues with March 11th or the 25th?
I may have another conflict on March 11th, so I'm voting for March 25th, but again, not a priority for me to attend if it works for others.
Okay, let's narrow it down to March 25th and see how we look there. Any concerns? I think we've got it. Let me just check with the DNR team here, Ms. Coleman, Ms. Abad, any concerns on your end?
For March 25th, no.
Thanks, Tim. It works for me as well. I just wanted to get clarification on the time. Would it be 5 to 7 or 6 to 8?
It's a great question. What do we prefer, committee members, going back to 6 to 8, or do we like the 5 to 7?
Five to 7.
5 to 7 it is. We good there then, or? All right, that was actually not too painful. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you hanging in there with us.
Great. So March 25th from 5 to 7. We'll see everyone there. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Chimino. Second? Dr. Way, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for being here. The meeting is adjourned and we'll see you in 2 months. Everyone take good care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.